to me, I have Mark Bichachi, he's a communication strategist. On my far left, I have Kokio Cheng, she's a communication media studies lecturer at USA. It's so good to have both of you here this morning. I can see Bichachi already up and going with the newspaper. What has caught your eye? Because you're laughing.
No. There are two things that have caught my eye. One is, of course, this neighbor who decided to kidnap a 16-year-old girl and keep her for 8 months. I hope the judgment will be swift and the guy will be sentenced to death. I don't know whether this qualifies for that sentence, but he should. And then the mercenary, the professional mercenary, left DNA everywhere.
Quote to quote professional.
Yes, I think we need to change what professional means, because I think when someone comes, I think in Kenya, if you get any job outside the country, so if you are a watchman outside the country, you come back upgraded, you are a closed security professional. If you are a kindergarten teacher in Dubai, you're a lecturer. You're a lecturer. Yes. That's how it works, but at least we know now the truth. Okay,
let me just get Koki's thoughts. Koki, this story on page 3, the villagers rescued an abducted teenager girl after 8 months. The story behind this is a 16-year-old girl was kidnapped by her own neighbor, locked up for 8 months, only for then neighbors around to start noticing that this guy walks in and out at late hours with a bucket, and that's the bucket where she would release herself, so he would sexually assault her and so forth. And I just don't even want, this is not even a matter of a professional aspect, just being parents, both of you, Koki. When you hear this story, what comes to your mind?
It just sends chills down my spine, because I think then girls are, okay, we say kids, children are endangered species, but I think the challenge is, how is it that we don't take seriously cues for girls to know that they need to defend themselves and how they need to defend themselves, not just girls. It seems as if all our children need to be aware on and alert on what to do, how to deal with strangers, how to kind of, you know, be able to get themselves out of such a situation. I can imagine this girl is just next door. I mean, she should have had, we watch a lot of movies though, let me not put it that way, but she should have had some skills that would let her get out of that situation. But the devil's advocate is, why would she stay there 16 months? I mean, for all that time.
8 months. And you know, Koki, you say that, and I saw a research that was done this week where they were asking, the research firm was asking men and women to sort of write down what it is they do to sort of, what can I say, keep away from sexual assault every day, be it from your work life, be it when you're in transport, etc. Do you know on the men's side, it was zero, there was nothing, whereas women had to write different things. You know, I have to walk on this side of the road. When I'm at work, I have to laugh at a joke that was sexually made towards me. And these are grown men and women who are doing the research. So you can imagine a 16-year-old girl, right? Mark, being also a parent, when you hear this?
First, there are so many psychological and physical aspects to what someone goes through when they're kidnapped. There's one, you don't know where you are. You don't know how far away from home you are. Two, you don't know the state of the mind of the person who's kidnapped. You don't know what screaming will cause. You don't know what torture you could go through. Secondly, she was being kept in isolation. Now, anyone who's ever been to prison and they tell you being kept in isolation does a serious damage to your mind. So you can imagine the state of this 16-year-old girl. Right, yeah. Because an adult just spending a week in isolation, you can literally go insane. And you can imagine this is isolation where you're kept in a room where your own refuse is your only company, and then you're later on molested, and then the feeding program, she says she was being fed once a day. Yeah. And let's be very clear that it's very hard for anyone to overcome such psychological odds in such a situation. Right. And therefore, for me, my cry really to my fellow Kenyans is we must begin to value the life of a woman. And I said this last Friday. We are taking the lives of women too casually. You look at Sharon, you look at Monica now, you look at this young lady. There's also the lady who was killed by an ex-boyfriend.
The daughter,
yes. Yes, exactly. So there's so much, the value of a woman in Kenyan society is less. And you can see that even in how in who we impeach in this country. A lady judge pinches her nose, we impeach her. Elachi, because of a back problem, pays for her own ticket to go to the United States, we impeach her. But yet we have men who do much worse. They rape, pillage, and plunder our country every day, and we do nothing. Because in Kenya, it seems to me that the life and dignity of a woman is less than that of a man.
Wow.
And as a father, I think it is time we put that to a stop. We cannot be treating our women worse than we treat men.
We need to have that conversation indeed. Another conversation. Take a look at page 6 and page 7, Koki and Mark. There's this story where Kidero has 9 billion Kenyan shillings worth of assets caught. To all this, of course, after ESCC says its investigators have revealed former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero has assets worth 9 billion. And that story also complements another story on page 7. Court told how finance boss made $1 billion in 2 years. Koki, I can hear you giggling. Now, here's the thing. Did we go into devolution without proper systems set into place? Because how do you explain someone who is on a salary making $1 billion in 2 years?
I think there are systems in government where you have to declare your wealth. That I think is taken very seriously. So we would like to start asking from that point, how is it that, you know, people declare their wealth,
right, and
yet some people tend to get out of that loop, you know, if it is a serious kind of intervention, to just find out how this person got his wealth. You find a situation like this, if he has his, you know, his assets frozen or whatever it is, he might have worked for it before, and then we need to know what he attained after, so that we come up with a real justification as to why we should condemn him for doing what he has done. And just being a bit careless with that period where money was just flowing without keen interest, which I don't believe, because the Auditor General always always gives a report and is always in touch with what happens. Maybe the way it was dealt with through Senate, which was the body that is supposed to be doing the oversight of county governance, then brings to question whether the system is porous or whether it's a human, you know, weakness where we don't want to probe and we say we are probing.
And that's the thing, Bichachi, is it a system error or a human weakness?
It's not a system error. It is an amoral society. You know, let's be very clear. This guy is sending a clerk, a driver, a security officer, you know, his deputies, his juniors. They are carrying millions of shillings to their account.
In cash?
Yes, in cash. Where was their sense of duty? Where was their sense of morality? Where was their sense of patriotism? Number two, the bank that received the money, my bank, my dear friend, when I go to deposit 1 million shillings, they ask me, where did you get it? Okay? But where was the bank manager, the bank of tellers? Why were they asking this person? We know that you work for the county government because you wrote when you signed into this account that you work for the county government. Where are you getting the money to deposit 2.7 million shillings?
Right.
It goes even further than that. It goes into the question that as a country, when you are doing the wealth declaration forms, are they ways of making sure the paper industry continues in this country? Or are we serious about writing these forms? Because the truth of the matter is, as far as my mother is concerned, and she's a civil servant, I can tell you where she got the money to buy everything. Okay? Because it is clear in my mind how she got this loan and that loan and bought everything that she had. Now you want to tell me that someone who worked for Mumias, which failed, has 9 billion shillings worth of assets. Do you own Safaricom?
Or someone who was in public office for 2 years is now worth $1 billion.
And you know, let me tell you, Zenzi, if we are very honest, before you make 9 billion shillings, what business you do will be very clear, because it will be very successful. You understand? You need to understand that if anyone is going to make 9 billion shillings in a country such as ours, you own Safaricom, you own EABL, you own Barclays Bank.
There's something to show for.
Yes.
All right. Let me get your thoughts as we're on this corruption issue before we move to the Daily Nation. Yesterday, still on the corruption issue, on NCPP, President Uhuru Kenyatta said again his famous quote, "I swear to God, XYZ." I'm trying to feel like it's starting to become a song, even to a lot of Kenyans. When we see the president angry, and then, you know, Akia Mungu quote, right? It's now something that he seems to be throwing around, because the other question is, okay, fine, he's angry. And he says, I swear to God, if you continue walking down this road. But then Kenyans, right, Mama Mboga, you and I as we sit here, then ask, what's next, you know? Because you guys saw the plight of the maize farmers. We have seen it. We've seen the sugar industry crumble, right? And I recently saw an article where our coffee market, right, is also dwindling. What is happening to this nation?
I think we need to interrogate not just corruption as a word, because corruption is really a blanket word. It never really says exactly what is going wrong. There is some training we were having about, you know, analyzing systems, systems analysis.
Right.
And one thing we miss out is to understand that every time something goes wrong, somebody is taking advantage of an already existing system. And one thing we should question is, why is the system failing? You know, and if it is failing, then what corrective actions we are taking? And I can assure you, having been a government officer some time back, that government really takes seriously, you know, the systems they put in place. Where people just mismanage it and go, you know, set free is the other issue. Then, once you realize this person has this amount and can't explain it through disciplinary action, then what do we do with those funds? Do we revert them to the, you know, the treasury? Do we revert them to the county? What is it we do? What is the penalty? And is it, you know, strong enough to deter others to do the same thing? So those are the questions we have to begin to ask.
Okay, before Mark, I get your thoughts. If you take a look at page 10 of the Daily Nation, they have well crafted where we've been as a nation from 2008 to 2017 in terms of maize production, if that's something you're interested in. But then also get this, 27% of Kenya's gross domestic product is contributed by agriculture. 40.3 billion Kenyan shillings is the value of maize imported in 2017. Pichachi, why is maize such a hot issue in this country?
Maize is not a hot issue. Theft is. Now, let me explain. There are two commodities in this country that I've discovered that if you have the kind of heart to destroy your brothers and sisters and to rape, pillage and plunder your country, there are two commodities that you need to invest in. Not invest, steal from. Maize and sugar. Zinzi, I'm telling you, if you bring in 1 billion shillings worth of maize, because of how much maize we consume, you will have your 3 billion shillings back by the end of the month. That's how quickly it goes. It's the same
it's
case
in every
with sugar.
home.
Yes. So the issue that happens in this country, it is that because maize and sugar and all these fast-moving consumer goods are a staple of any economy, then what we do is we precipitate a crisis year on year so that we can go lean on the finance minister to allow for a quota of free importation. I don't know why it needs to be free, because you will make a profit. Then you will come, sell it to the cereals board at exorbitant rates at the expense of the farmer who spent the entire year farming that crop. So this is not a question of agricultural confusion and stuff like that. It is a question of greed. It is a question of chronism. It is a question that we as a society, and I keep saying, we as a society have decided that it is okay to rape, pillage and plunder ourselves for the enrichment of a few.
Okay, so
yes, but I think that if people ask questions, something happens. The farmers have asked questions. Just yesterday, my uncle talked about 200 bags he has somewhere, you know, sold to what is it, the maize?
NCPP.
Yeah, and the issue is how assertive are Kenyans about things that matter to them?
But Koki, do you see the video where the maize farmers are really angry and they were putting these questions?
Yes.
So it's not that they've not been asking the questions, they have, but they don't seem to be getting the answers that they have, because at the end of the day, their children are not going to school.
I think is how angry are we and how sustainable is that anger for people to act?
Okay. Koki, you're right to the extent that we need to be angry. But Kenyan anger is very interesting. It lasts until 6 months to the election. And then 6 months to the election, we stop being angry and we become a family. We become a family and we look for a Mike Gitonga, and my name is Gitonga, so we, the Gitongas, must vote for another Gitonga. We look for a Wepuhulu, and then we, the Wepuhulus. So the problem with Kenya is we get angry until we are reminded we have tribes. Okay. Then when we have tribes, we start singing, you know, Kumira, Kumira, then Tibim, Tibim, Tialala, Tialala. That's all we do as a nation. And let me tell you, let me face Kenyans and tell them, for as long as you're going to vote for musicians and dancers and guys who can say Tibim, Tiliala, Wembe, Ule, Ule, Kumira, Kumira, my friend, you enjoy your lot in life. You voted for a musician. When they go to a parliament to vote for 8%, what do? They sing. And what are they singing on? They're singing on your graves because you are the walking dead.
All right. I don't think it's that bleak. I think we are learning lessons. I don't think it is really unfair to be
wait
that,
until
you know.
2022.
Yes, I know.
Months.
But to some extent,
or do we just wait for the referendum?
No, but to some extent, I think that there are some case studies that are coming through.
Okay.
We don't know whether they are solid or not, but devolution is working to some extent. To some extent.
In one county, you
Not
mean?
one county. I'm sure in every other. I keep saying when I go to Korea, which is where I come from, there's a tarmac road. I mean, it never was there for years.
Right.
So for me, it's in bits, it's in tatters, it is not clear, but it's there.
Okay.
And
Koki, that's like saying, let's dress you in bits. Let's dress you in bits. You see, this is the problem. Kenyans need to understand that if you deserve 100%, you deserve 100%. This idea of telling Kenyans that at least you have 10%, so you are stolen 90%, is like saying, let me kill you 90%, I will leave you with 10%. One road in Korea is not devolution working.
No,
devolution
it's not
working.
just one road. Let's just be honest.
It's a matter of other things.
Yeah, it might not. Remember, this is a constitution we adopted.
Right.
And we just didn't have the systems in place. It's not something that we can benchmark with anywhere. Let's be honest. It's a progressive constitution. We didn't put systems in place. It just happened. And of course, the confusion comes in. That is not to justify the plundering.
Okay, but Bichachi, I would love for us to get a few other comments because I really need to hear your thoughts, especially Koki Ocheng being a lecturer. Not once for tutors strike as talks fail. And Koki, this is the thing that I do not understand about our teachers' union, and they are fantastic. They're the ones who feed the students of this nation and the next leaders. And yes, the way they're treated is not the best way. We could learn from other developed countries. But the question would be, why are they calling for these strikes right before exams start? And at the end of the day, this student, since primary, has been preparing for these exams, right? Only for it to be stalled, for them not to go through them because teachers are striking. The question is, why now? And that, to some extent, shows a bit of greed from the, from the teachers' side, from the teachers' union. You choose now when students are going on exams to strike? Don't you not think it's genuine? It's not genuine?
I think being a teacher and a professional one at that, I think the conflict is not just in terms of, or the weakness is not just in terms of unions.
Right.
Wherever there is more, and if you go into PR proper and you look at, reputation, wherever there is more union involvement, then there's a problem with the management of the whole system. So every time there is a kind of conflict between unions and an organization, maybe the question should be, what is the organization doing? Not to pass on any blame, but the lesser you have conflict with your customers, with your unions and etc., the better you run.
Right.
The more you have, conflict resolution mechanisms in the organization, between the organization, the unions, and your workers, the better it is.
Okay.
I know that teaching is a profession that requires, a lot of systematic work and, being in sync, but there's always conversations that can be had so that these things don't keep happening.
And Bichachi, the thing is, what our teachers are asking for are genuine needs to help them perform better, but there's that question of their timing.
I would not fully blame teachers because we live in a country where teachers honestly feel like they're only listened to when they literally grab the country where it hurts most. And that tells you that both teacher and the person who's supposed to be listening to them in government have not been having conversations for a long time. And this is true because in this country, how ministers of education make decisions, they make decisions like it's still 1982. Roadside decisions. One bus has an accident, now all buses are yellow. I don't know whether yellow is an accident repelling mechanism, but yellow. Then suddenly we wake up and we say, oh, by the way, we can have one uniform for all the kids. Then we wake up and we say, oh, there was another accident. Now buses will only be on the road between 8 in the morning and 6 in the PM.
Yeah.
As in, you know, we make decisions so arbitrarily, but yet these decisions we make have such an impact on the teacher because the teacher is thinking. We've left Mombasa to go to Nairobi, okay?
All right.
The bus got stuck.
Can I pause you? Because we need to let our
Can
KTN home viewers go.
Oh, okay.
All right, for our KTN home viewers, we have to let you go. But this conversation continues here on KTN News when we come back from this short commercial break. Stay with us.